Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to drink some coffee. We're going to talk about rifle cartridges. In this episode, we're going to do a good old-fashioned versus match between the .243 Winchester and the brand new .22 Creedmoor. Stay tuned. All right, I said brand new .22 Creedmoor. It's not brand new. It's been out for a little bit. It's very hot. It's very on fire. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone likes it. I think Hornady likes their .22 ARC a little better, but industry-wide, it's very popular. I've seen YouTubers out there talking about how they have built this new .22 Creedmoor gun to kill elk and moose, and my eyes kind of roll. A lot of people love it. A lot of people swear by it, talk about how modern it is, how great it is, and how so much better it is than older cartridges. And then we have the old .243 Winchester, as old as the hills. Very dull, very basic. You know, it's a woman's cartridge, it's a little boy's cartridge. I don't believe any of that. I'm just setting the stage. Basically, it's an old fud's cartridge. It's obsolete. Throw it away. Versus the new hot, awesome .22 Creedmoor. Now, before you comment, I understand this is not an apples to apples comparison. You're probably saying, well, you need to compare the 6mm Creedmoor to the .243. Well, I've done that on my channel. Did it a long time ago. Or you might say you need to compare like the 6mm Remington to the .243. I've done that on the channel. And to be completely honest, I probably would give the edge to the 6mm Remington and the 6mm Creedmoor. Just looking at the objective facts, the .243 just kind of is very close, but falls a little short. But the .243 has been unbelievably popular. It's a vampire, kind of like the 30-06. You can't kill it. You're going to have to take a stake to the heart to kill it. It's popular. A lot of people use it. A lot of people love it. And it's not going away. Awesome cartridges come along like the 6mm Creedmoor and don't even put a dent in its success. So I understand it's not an apples to apples comparison, but I want to do this comparison because they're both varmint cartridges. Now, the .243 is generally thought of as a dual purpose cartridge, but hey, when you got YouTubers out killing elk with the .22 Creedmoor, I guess it's a dual purpose cartridge too. But I'm really thinking of this in the lens of a varmint cartridge. And so, which is better? The boring, old, dull .243 or the brand new hot .22 Creedmoor? So let me take you back, first of all, to my experience. I thought of the .243 as a woman's cartridge, as a little boy's cartridge. When I was young, didn't really care about it. Around the time I started my channel, maybe a couple years before, I started to do more research and really look at the cartridge and realized it's a fantastic cartridge. And it's only grown on me since. I've made videos on the channel about it, I've reloaded for it, and I just like it more and more all the time. Probably 8 to 10 years ago, I was really thinking seriously about getting a custom rifle built in .22 250 Ackley improved. I just really liked the thought of it, and I just thought, man, that would be so cool. And of course, I was going to have it with a faster twist rate, probably 1 in 8, and I was already thinking about like 90 grain bullets. At the time, I know for sure Berger was making 90 grain bullets, but I was thinking, man, that'd be the coolest varmint cartridge ever. And you know, you just keep pushing it. You just keep getting heavier bullets, and you keep getting a faster twist rate. And then eventually it dawned on me, I've created a .243. When you take the .22 250 so far out of its lane, it basically has become a .243. And so that gave me a new appreciation for the .243. Now the .22 Creedmoor, it's obviously a neck down 6.5 Creedmoor. The 6.5, the 6mm, and the .22 are all the same case, or at least extremely similar, just different calibers. And they come from that 30 TC. The modern shoulder angle, the modern dimensions, of the 22 Creedmoor is very similar to a 22-250 Ackley Improved. And as far as performance, I would say they're like ballistic twins. The big difference is the Creedmoor has a 1-in-8 twist. And years ago, when people would have custom rifles built in 22-250 Ackley Improved, it probably didn't have a 1-in-8 twist. Some did, I'm sure, but some probably had 1-in-9 or 1-in-10. Because unlike today, when people think of a 22-250 Ackley Improved or 22 Creedmoor, they're thinking of varmints. But today, apparently, we're thinking of elk. Now, you probably are picking up from my tone a little bit of negativity toward the 22 Creedmoor. But let me tell you, I actually think it's a pretty cool cartridge. I think the 6.5 Creedmoor is pretty cool. I like the 6mm Creedmoor even more. Even though it's not that popular, it really didn't catch on to the degree I thought it would. I think it's better than the 6.5 Creedmoor. And as soon as I heard them talk about the 22 Creedmoor, I thought, oh man, that's going to be awesome. It's going to be very similar, like I said, to a 22-250 Ackley Improved. So I have no hate for the cartridge. I like the cartridge. But is it dramatically better than the old 243? Well, we're going to look at the numbers here in a second. I love new cartridges. I get excited every time I hear about the 7mm backcountry, the 22 Creedmoor. I love it. I think it's cool. And I'm excited to see what they come up with and what kind of innovation that they've come out with. So I love new cartridges. But I love old cartridges too. I think a 7mm Mauser is still really cool. I think a 6.5x55 Swede is still awesome. I think the 30-06 is just as relevant today as it ever has been. So I love new cartridges and I love old cartridges. And so this is kind of in that. This is an old cartridge versus a new cartridge. Yes, they're different calibers. They have the same purpose, either varmints or you could consider them dual application cartridges. But one is brand new and hot and one has been around for a long time. Now, I'm gonna only use Hornady literature. And so you could find other numbers and other manuals and things and be a totally different story. But I'm gonna go with 22 Creedmoor load data from Hornady's website. And I'm gonna go with 243 Winchester from Hornady's manual that I have, the 11th edition. As far as I know, this is the most up-to-date load data published by Hornady in these two cartridges. So I will put it on the screen now. Both cartridges in a 24-inch barrel. The 22 Creedmoor has a 1-in-8 twist. The 243, in this case, has a 1-in-10 twist. There are several varieties out there, 1-in-9.5, 1-in-9.25, and I think there's even some 1-in-8s that are coming out now. The max pressure of the 22 Creedmoor is 62,000. The max pressure of the 243 is 60,000. That really should only have an effect on factory ammo. However, I have noticed in the reloading manuals that they won't go over the SAMI max pressure. You know, if you're talking about an extremely old antique rifle that can't take the pressure, like an old lever action rifle or something, I can understand it. But for all intents and purposes, there's no reason to do that. This is not exact, I guess, but the 22 Creedmoor could hold about 52 grains of H2O in the case. The 243 can hold probably around 54. Barrel life, this is so dependent on so many factors, but let's just say 1,000 for the 22 Creedmoor and 1,500 for the 243. Depending on how you shoot them, that could be totally different. You could get a lot more out of the Creedmoor, you could get a lot less out of the 243. Really depends on how you shoot them and use them. But obviously when you have two cases that are basically the same, but one is a smaller caliber, it's simply more overbore. And so it just stands to reason it's going to have a shorter barrel life. A little bit better barrel life with the 243. The case capacity is about the same, and max pressure is about the same. Big difference is the twist rate and, of course, the caliber. Now you're going to look here, there's only 62 to 90 grain bullets available on Hornady's website currently, but in their manual there's 58 grains all the way to 103, 105 grains in the 243. The 243 has just been out longer, and of course it's going to have more load data and a wider array of bullets. And yes, the 103 grain might not stabilize in a 1-in-10 twist barrel. I literally just shot the 103 grain out of my 243, which has a 1-in-9.25. At my elevation, it stabilized perfectly with no issues. Now, you're probably not going to get heavier than a 90 grain bullet in 22 Creedmoor. You might. You can definitely go lighter. In fact, you could go much lighter, probably down to like 35, 40 grains if you want to. But that kind of defeats the purpose of having that faster twist rate and having that bullet seated out there. So first of all, versatility for sure goes to the 243. If you look at each one of these bullets, I have the grain weight, what it is. Right underneath it, I have the BC, and then I have the velocity, and I have how many powders reach that velocity. For instance, if you look at the 75 grain boat tail hollow point in the 22 Creedmoor, it has a max velocity of 3,600 feet per second. But only one powder is listed that can do that. And then you come over here to the 243 down toward the bottom, the 95 grain SST, max loads around 3,000. They have 10 powders listed that can get 3,000. Now, part of the reason, once again, there's just more load data available because the 243 has been around. But also, you think about the 7PRC and Reloader 26, it's much better to see multiple powders getting a certain velocity than only one powder. And on that 95 grain SST, it makes you wonder, if 10 powders can get that velocity, surely there's a few that could get a higher velocity. All right, so if you look at this, generally speaking, Hornady says the 22 Creedmoor gets better velocity and a better BC. There's only a few of these that are an exact comparison as far as bullet weight, in the 75 grain, the 80, and the 90. And in all three cases, they have the 22 Creedmoor getting more velocity and a higher BC. Now, the higher BC is for sure. It's the same weight bullet in a smaller caliber. It will have higher BC. So that is an advantage to the 22 Creedmoor. However, if you look at the 62 grain ELDVT, that's a brand new bullet, definitely has a higher BC, 0.395, compared to the 243, the 65 grain VMAX, 0.280. So it's really not a good comparison. If you put the 62 grain ELDVT in the 243, it's going to be dramatically different. So this is not apples to apples. But the BC is for sure going to be better with the 22 Creedmoor with similar weight bullets. My biggest issue here is the velocity. You have two cartridges, same barrel length, basically the same pressure rating, basically the same case capacity. Why would the 22 Creedmoor get more velocity than the 243? The max overall length of both cartridges is around 2.7. The faster your twist rate is actually going to slow you down just a hair. So if you shoot the same bullet out of both cartridges, the slower twist rate will actually give you a little bit more speed because it's just less revolutions going down the barrel. So it's just going to slow it down to the very slightest amount. We're not talking about much at all, but point being, 1 in 8 twist wouldn't make it faster. It would actually make it slower by the smallest margin. So I can see no reason why the 22 Creedmoor is getting better velocity than the 243 in every single bullet weight. I think you load them to the same pressure, all other things being equal like we talked about, with the same bullets like the ELDVT, for instance, they're going to be very similar. For instance, down here at the bottom on the 243, I literally last week shot the 103 grain ELDX. With grand powder, I got 3,100 feet per second, and here it shows 3,000. And I got 3,200 feet per second with Superformance. And that was with a 22-inch barrel, okay? So I literally got 200 feet per second more with a 2-inch shorter barrel. So that should give you an example that I believe you could do better than what Hornady is publishing here in the 243. But for the sake of argument, let's just go by these numbers. I can't see how that's accurate, but if you know something I don't know or you have an explanation, please leave it in the comments. But let's just say that it's legit and all these numbers are exactly right. The 22 Creedmoor then would be a little faster and have higher BC bullets. Therefore, it wins as far as performance, right? So let's put these two together. 22 Creedmoor with a 90 grain A-tip going 3,300 feet per second. 243 with a 90 grain ELDX going 3,200 feet per second. These are two bullets that we just looked at. The A-tip's got a BC of 585, much better, and the ELDX in the 243 is a BC of 409. So clearly, the 22 Creedmoor is going to win this because it starts out faster and has a better BC. At 100 yards, it has 3142 feet per second and 1973 foot-pounds of energy, compared to the 243, 2,987 feet per second and 1784 on the foot-pounds. That's an advantage for the Creedmoor of 155 feet per second and 189 foot-pounds. At 400 yards, the Creedmoor has 2678 on velocity, 1434 on energy. The 243 has 2335 on velocity, 1090 on energy. So because of the BC, that's an increased advantage of 343 feet per second and 344 foot-pounds. That's at 400 yards. The drop at 400 yards for the Creedmoor is 16.8. The drop for the 243 is 20 inches. That's an advantage of 3.2 inches. So if these numbers are exactly right, which I definitely question them, at 400 yards you have a little over 300 feet per second advantage and about 3 inches of drop. Now, that's definitely an advantage, and if you're just strictly going by these numbers, it's a clear win for the 22 Creedmoor. Once again, I have questions about this, but let's just go with that. Let's just say that it wins in performance. Okay, so based on those numbers, it does eke out the 243. It has better ballistics according to these numbers. So this brand new, hot, fresh, trendy cartridge that just came out a few years ago barely beats the old dud 243 that's been out since the 1950s. But the 243 is more versatile as far as bullet weights being offered, way more common. It's like night and day, okay? 243 is in everything, and a little bit better barrel life. Which one do you think wins? Based on these numbers, performance-wise, if you are shooting the same grain bullet, 22 Creedmoor wins, just barely. But what if you want to shoot a 103 grain bullet and you have a twist rate that can do that in the 243? How many rifles are being chambered in 22 Creedmoor compared to the 243? You want to go find 22 Creedmoor ammo, how easy is it to find? How much does it cost versus the 243? I guess my final thing would be to say, overall, it's pretty close. I think as a hand loader, I could get much better out of the 243 than what these numbers are showing. I think they're both really good. I think they're about the same, really. In practical terms, the 243 wins easily. In just ballistics, it's close with an edge going to the 22 Creedmoor. But isn't that funny that one came out in the 50s and one came out just a few years ago? And one is hot and brand new and people are chambering it to go elk hunting and all kinds of crazy stuff. And the other one is the boring women's cartridge. I don't think it is. I'm just saying a lot of people think that. It's old fuddy-duddies use that cartridge. Quite interesting. But I really do like both cartridges. I think they're both pretty cool. I like the 22 Creedmoor, and I'm glad it's here. You know, it basically is a 22 250 Ackley improved, but standardized. And you got a great marketing team behind it, a Hornady, and so I believe it'll stick around. But I also love the old 243 Winchester. There's a reason it can't be killed. There's a reason it just keeps sticking around. Even when seemingly better cartridges like the 6mm Remington, the 6mm Creedmoor, and now even a different caliber, but the 22 Creedmoor seem to edge it out. It just sticks around. There's a reason, because it's really, really good. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give it a thumbs up. Leave your comments below. I'd love to read about what you think. Just keep it civil. This is just fun, guys. We're just having fun. There's no reason to get mad at each other. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video if you think it's worth sharing. And until next time, guys, take care.